very much. Just to go back again, you've been very clear. Maureen McMahon and Pat McCabe, you've said and you've agreed that Commissioner Rice was right in his viewpoint. You're accepting that it was the money belonged to the Garda. Isn't that what you're saying? I want to be fair now, because I asked you this morning. I read out the commissioners. Honestly, I'm very bad on titles, so forgive me. But he said the money belonged to the Garda. My colleague here asked you again, and both of you said that's right.
Yes, the stipend was for more than meals, is what we're saying.
No, you said that now.
Yeah.
And, no, just 1 second. No, I understand that, and you've been very clear. I don't understand how you can have an investigation with an open mind, if that's your belief. Because that's clearly against what Mr. McGee said. It's clearly against what Mr. Nolan said. It's clearly against what the internal audit said. Again, for my simple mind, money came through a vote to pay for the guards who were training. That money went into the restaurant. Surplus money was made in the restaurant through extra people coming in. Profit was made. There was a commingling of public funds and private funds, and that went on then to form a company and other matters. Isn't that right? A commingling of funds, public and private, generating a profit, and that profit was used then to purchase shares, Aviva shares, and so on. Isn't that right?
With the ultimate aim of developing the facilities in the Garda College and maintaining the facilities in the Garda College.
I understand what you've told me, but just listen to me from one point of view, and I'm no expert, but we're learning quickly here from the Controller and Auditor General. You were clearly, even back in 2008, not you personally, not complying with the regulations that existed at that point. Isn't that right? We'll come to Mr. McGee's report in 2008, and he sets out the difficulties then. So I have a difficulty then understanding how you're still maintaining your position.
Well, the position is that in terms of the stipend, that's what it was. And I know I'm repeating myself now.
That's your understanding
of
what
my
it was.
understanding.
We're going to go back to the Department of Justice, because all along you've been consistent in saying the Department of Justice were fully aware of this, tolerated this, and not just tolerated it, but fully encouraged it as a way of generating funds.
That would be my understanding, certainly, from the time I worked there.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying that is my understanding. I am in your hands in terms of adjudicating on that.
Oh, okay. So the Department of Justice has to answer something here, because that's the message coming all the time from the guards through correspondence, through your testimony here, that the Department of Justice sanctioned all of this, one way or another. Maybe the word sanctioned is too strong, is it? Or did they sanction it?
Well, it was coming from the Garda vote, and certainly I'm aware that Mr. Gay Harris was the financial advisor and indeed the auditor at one point. So, he was certainly aware, as I understand it, from the Department of Justice.
Okay, we'll come to the Department of Justice. So, again, for us, the money is going in, it's generating a profit. It's allowing that profit to purchase shares in various. Aviva stands out. It allows you to make contributions to everyone from the GEA to the local church to the boat club in Dublin. Isn't that right?
And I'm not saying that those contributions were correct. What I'm saying is, Deputy, that the surpluses that were generated were utilised for the development of the college, to the sports field company, to the golf club. So that's what it wasn't. It wasn't that the surpluses were used for any private gain in any way, shape or form.
I'm not even going down that. I'm going to let the internal audit complete its business and come up with it. But just at this point, I'm just trying to clarify. I wish we were looking at the implementation of the recommendations. That's what I wish we were looking at. Deal with this, get it out of the way. But the more we try to do that, the more items of conflict come up. The two obvious ones are Mr. Barrett, Mr. Culhan, divergent views. Mr. Dunn is in here somewhere in the middle of this, and then we have Mr. McGee, which I'll come back to, and his report not being acted on. So it's hard to move on to the implementation. Would you accept that when there's such a conflict between witnesses before us?
I absolutely agree with you, Deputy.
Okay.
It's really important that we get on to the implementation.
Okay.
And just while we're on, conflicts and, versions of events, I would just like to place on the record that on the 22nd of January 2015, I submitted a report to Mr. John Barrett outlining, the title of the report was a briefing document for the Garda Commissioner.
27th of January 15.
15, yes.
Yeah.
And that document gave an overview of the work that I was doing and proposing to do in terms of winding up the Sportsfield company. It also alluded to the highly unusual situation that existed in terms of the Sportsfield company and associated matters. And that document was forwarded to Mr. Barrett for his information and that of the Garda Commissioner.
Yes.
So I suppose that was some 6 months before...
So what you're saying is you were carrying out your job at that point?
No, what I'm saying is that I notified it to Mr. Barrett in January 2015. That was 6 months before Mr. Barrett highlighted it.
In relation to the sports club, in relation to the company?
Yes, and also in that document was the fact that the funds that funded the Sportsfield company transferred from the Garda College restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also aware that that document wasn't forwarded by Mr. Barrett to the Garda Commissioner. It was forwarded to the Director of Finance in March, asking the Director of Finance...
That's Mr. Connolly, is it?
Yes. Asking the Director of Finance to take the lead on it, that the matters appear to be financial in nature, and that Mr. Barrett was available to assist as required.
Yeah, I understand. So what point are you making, sorry?
The point I'm trying to make here is that the work that I was doing, that I commenced in 14, and as that rolled on, there was a briefing document developed. I submitted that to Mr. Barrett, and I suppose I'm putting that on the record because I'm aware of other matters that are out in the media and in this committee that suggest otherwise.
Okay, well, I accept that and I see that, and I think Mr. Barrett accepts that. There comes a point where he loses trust in the process. That's the difficulty as we see it, and that's just his viewpoint of what we see coming across. So if we go back again, I'm concerned that the message is this was historical, and Mr. Dunn has said this in one of those 2 notes that you wrote, that you have no concerns about the past. It's to get it right now. That there were different governance rules applicable before. It was now different. You have no doubt that 15 looking backwards and applying the standards in 15, that we can't do that. The point is that what I've put repeatedly, 2008 when this report was done, it was against the rules then, the way the Garda College was performing or functioning. Isn't that right?
Just to be clear, my view was always that we needed to have a full audit done, right, of what had gone on. So I wasn't taking a position in relation to
just let me just look where I get this from. This is the 6th of August. These have been referred to already. The minutes are a note. Meeting office of the Chief Administrative Officer. The 6th of August, 11:15. And then on the second page, the CAO outlined that his only concern in relation to the college is the obligation that at the end of a financial year, that if a public body has a surplus, which you've said, there is a duty to reimburse. Okay, and you've said that. And he has no major issues with what went before.
But
he has no major issues with what went before.
So just let me put that into context. So this was the working group. Okay, but the working group was not charged with doing an audit of what had gone before. What the working group was charged with was actually getting recommendations implemented. And that was what I was trying to do there, was to keep that working group focused on implementing, making decisions and taking action. That's what I was charged to do.
There was no report at this point. There was no interim audit report at this time. This is August 15.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think, as I've made clear, right, always, is that my view was that there did need to be an audit which is separate.
But I understand that. I understand that. Mr. Dunn, just a second. I understand that. I don't mean to take you short.
Okay.
But you're clearly saying there is no major issue with what went before. And this is in 15. This is in August 15.
So just, it's important that that's taken in context, because that was in the context of that working group. Yeah? And the focus of that working group was to make decisions and implement actions. I talked about no regret decisions earlier on, so like closing bank accounts, etc. I was always of the view that we needed to have a look back, which was an audit, right, which should not be conducted by that group.
Okay. I accept. I mean, I hear what you're telling me. I don't. Just let me. Just, Mr. McCabe. Sorry. Just you're down here. I think PMC. That's you, isn't it? On these minutes, is it?
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
Chief Superintendent. Superintendent Garda College, Patrick McCabe. That's you. Yeah. And what you're done is PMC pointed out that the 2008 finance report does not put into context the previous 40 years, and so on, and the fact that the college is 50 years old. The department are fully aware of the arrangements in relation to the college restaurant and reference certain decisions and so on. So you're saying that context has not been taken into account, and the Department of Justice is fully aware. Okay, I'm putting it to you again. If we go back to Mr. McCabe, when you did your report, can you tell us simply what you found that wasn't not? I have it in front of me here. It's a detailed report. What were the essential facts that you highlighted at that point?
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, Deputy. Obviously, there was a really complex.
I just want what was.
Okay.
Am I being unfair when I say it wasn't in compliance, even in 2008?
No, it wouldn't be in compliance with strict corporate governance and practice. No, that'd be my view. But I mean, to be fair, like my report was taken at a certain point in time. Like there is how these systems evolved. Like there was no intent. From my view, there was no intention that I could see. I mean, it almost looked like these structures evolved, but like as of now, like when you do the report based on financial procedure.
You said, listen, the amount of organisations, subcommittees and bank accounts being operated from the Garda College creates an environment where it is difficult to implement proper internal controls.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. It is also difficult to ascertain the legal nature of these organisations. You go on then to look specifically at the company, and you highlight serious issues around the company and legal issues.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. And in terms of implications for staff?
Yes.
Implied in the restaurant and so on. Now, that was 2008. Mr. Dunn, wasn't that enough to ring when you did become aware of it? And a previous 06 report, and then a 2010 report, all before your time. But when you became aware of all of this, in terms of openness and accountability, wouldn't it have made sense to say, oh God, there's a whole history here, nothing acted on or acted on and then unacted on. Send this off to the Controller and Auditor General.
As I was saying earlier this morning, I decided differently at the time, taking what I took from the Controller and Auditor General, his view that it would have been better to have informed them then, and I accept that.
Okay,
but I didn't.
Okay, just two last things, Chair.
So that's. So that's my position.
Yeah.
But I do really want it to be understood by the committee that it was always my intention, or my view rather, that there should be an internal audit conducted. That was always
when
my
you
view.
Thought the time was right.
That was my view. The timing, right? Actually, internal audit can actually do an audit any time they want to do it. Okay, there's no. That is their right to do it any time they want to do it. My view was it certainly needed to be done.
You're repeatedly on record for saying yes, but not now.
That was my view.
That's okay.
That was my view. But I just want you to be.
I understand. I understand that. Just Mr. McGee, two final things, Chair.
So just if I can just close out on that again. 30th of September, I actually said to the audit committee that my view was that there needed to be an internal audit conducted. That's what and that there needed to be resources put aside for internal audit in the plan for 2016.
In the future.
In 2016. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, you may was my view. I understand that. That was the September meeting under any other business.
That was the September meeting.
Under any other business. Just give me a second. There was no written presentation. It does come up under any other business. You go forward to December, and at that audit committee, the note is we'll discuss this at some future date. That's what's down in the December meeting. So there's no sense. I've made this point already, that I don't think there was any sense of urgency. But just before my time is up, Mr. McGee, and I'm back again to these two men. And there are letters on file, very serious letters, about a meeting with you and things that were said. And I've asked you here this morning, have you trust in Mr. Barrett? Absolutely, you said. No issues at all with Mr. Barrett. Well, now, it seems from Mr. Culhan's point of view that you had serious issues with Mr. Barrett, in the sense of that you felt your job was in jeopardy. You never felt that? There's a letter here on file from Mr. Culhan, the 24th of October 15, and he's writing to the Commissioner, and he's given copies to Deputy Commissioner, and so on, which I'll come back to you on. And in that, amongst other things, he refers, I find the record of the meeting and the statements made by John Barrett very disturbing and alarming. Not what was happening in the Garda College now. The statements made by John Barrett was disturbing and alarming. And a statement by John Barrett to you, Mr. McGee, that your position in the Finance Directorate was under some threat.
No, that wasn't said. That was an opinion.
Just let me finish that sentence first now, because this is what's been said.
Yes, I know.
That your position, it was said to you that your position it was under some threat, and Mr. Culhan refers to that as particularly insidious. And he goes on to point out that you're a very honest and hard-working individual, so on. Is there any substance to that?
In essence, partly because I did say wish Mr. John Barrett like that. I felt uncomfortable, but that was a personal discomfort in terms of because I was.
But there was no threat from Mr.
No,
Barrett.
God, absolutely
nothing. So
absolutely
that interpretation is not correct.
No, it's not. But even I think I saw a note of another where John did say he reassured me that my job was safe. Right. So the words are more or less the word was correct.
Okay, let's go back to just candour then and trust in the system and going forward. So this report has been sent. Deputy Commissioner O'Coulon, you got this report, didn't you?
Yes.
This letter. Yeah.
Mr. Culhan sent it to all of the executive
members. He sent it to the Commissioner. What did you do about this letter and the very serious content of it?
Well, there was a meeting of the executive, I would say, probably the day after we received it, or very shortly after.
So that was the 24th of October.
I'm not sure the exact date,
but that's okay.
The next available meeting where we met, it was brought up, and it was seen for what it was, very serious letter, and very serious issues raised in it. Mr. Dunn, being their line manager of both, took the action away from the meeting that he would take it away and see how the matter could be resolved.
And that was the action? And
to raise issues. And it wasn't the end of it. He did come back and say that he had made that intervention, and that my feeling at the end of 2015 was that that matter had been resolved by Mr. Dunn with both Michael Culhan and Mr. Barrett.
Do you not think that goes to the very heart of trust? One member writing to the Commissioner, copying the letter to all of you and saying, amongst other, one that's completely wrong in relation to Mr. McGee, we know that now. A second thing, that Mr. Barrett should be examined under the Secrecy Act. Does that not trouble you? How could you go forward with that level of distrust on a committee?
What committee are you talking about?
That Mr. Culhan and Mr. Barrett were on the same committee, weren't they?
Oh, the steering group, yes.
Yeah. How could you go forward with that level of distrust?
Well, there were two key people. They held down two key positions in resolving the issue. In that one was head of finance and the other was the head of the Garda College.
But one is asking that the other be investigated under the Secrecy Act. One is making statements that are not true in relation to the gentleman.
Sorry, can I clarify on that? Statements were quite factual in one sense. I wouldn't. There were a I can't even. There weren't actually statements. I didn't see the letter until at all after this was written. So and I never saw any of the statements that were put in. But even from memory, like it was just a case of yes, he had said those type. He had said these things. So in terms of fact, but no, the number 5. There was no threat to my position.
No threat. Okay.
But he did. It was a case that I said I felt discomfort and.
You can imagine us reading this stuff and we see not alone is there a history and a legacy and ongoing problems, but then we see the committee that's set up or the steering group to look at this. This is what's happening. Okay, and right up to this year we have the head of, and I'll finish with this one. Here's my time up. Michael Howard outlining the lack of candor. There's a number of notes here, and I referred to this morning. I want to ask about this and come back on it. That Mr. Michael Howard, and he's referring to emails that Mr. Culhan had said, which I don't need to go into here, but he's taken issue with Mr. Culhan, serious issue with Mr. Culhan in relation to what he said in various letters. But he goes on to say, the audit report must fully reflect the fact that there has been a major failure in the financial control environment, a major failure, and that the failure continued for years, although senior management was aware of the problem and of its unfulfilled duty to disclose to the audit committee. Now, this is March 17. And it takes Mr. Culhan to task in terms of the way he wrote and so on, which I'm not going into it now at this point. But he refers to the lack of candor. Can you explain to me, where was the lack of candor? Did you inquire into that? Here's the 3rd of November 16, emphasising our concern at the lack of candor and the need to take action immediately and the need to stop shooting the messenger. That's November 16, and it goes forward. So the chairperson of the audit committee is seriously concerned about the ongoing lack of candor. What did you understand that to mean? Who were those people that weren't coming up front and giving answers? What inquiries did you make?
Again, I suppose I have to answer this in the context of the missed opportunity, which was Mr. McGee's report, and what happened almost 10 years ago. That was a major missed opportunity on the organisation's part to have dealt with the problem that still existed.
You just come back just to the question I'm asking you, and the lack of candour persisted up to this year.
But the lack of candour, I can assure you, didn't come from me. I was completely upfront with Mr.
I understand that, and he actually refers to the fact that it wasn't you. He refers to the fact that there wasn't the Commissioner. But he's drawn to your attention the lack of candour is a major concern to him in November 16.
Yeah.
What did you understand by that? Who did you check with, and how did you resolve that?
There are critical people holding down critical positions that had responsibility for fixing these issues and still have. One of them is critically Mr. Michael Culhan, because he's the finance director, executive director, and the other would be the executive director of the Garda College. Now, clearly, as was shown here at the last meeting, there was a clash between those two people, and there's a lack of trust between those two people. And that posed a challenge for Garda management in making sure that the urgency that needed to be attached to all of these matters was being attached to it, and that we were getting to the space where we were getting resolutions rather than people having maybe differing views.
Are you saying when Michael Howard is chairperson of the audit committee, when he talks about lack of candour, he's referring to two individuals?
No,
I'm asking you now very specifically, because it's very serious for a chairperson of an audit committee to refer to lack of candour at so late a stage.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably is referring to the fact that he felt he wasn't properly briefed, or his committee wasn't properly briefed.
By who?
Well, by whoever was supposed to do that. From the time this matter came to our attention in July of 2015. The people that were on that committee were both Cyril Dunn until he left at the end of that year, and when he did, I took over his position and did 2 jobs for about 8 months until Mr Nugent arrived.
But he's writing, sorry now, I'm way over my time now, but he's writing on the 3rd of November, emphasising our concern at the lack of candor. Not historically. Not historically. At this point in time, he's expressing his concern. I met with the Executive Board, Donal, and the new CEO, Joe Nugent, yesterday morning. I stuck pretty much to the script as previously notified, emphasising our concern at the lack of candor and the need to take action immediately and the need to stop shooting the messenger. He goes on to say the response from me was open and constructive, but I'm asking, where was the lack of candor coming at that point?
I took it that he meant the criticisms that would have been sent to Mr Kelly in respect of the responses to the audit committee, to the interim audit report.
Okay. From various people or one person?
I can't remember all that. I took it that there were various people at the time. That was my view on what he was saying.
You took it there were various people?
I took it that there were various people, yes.
But you have no idea who those people were? I'm over my time. I wanted to come to the Department of Justice, but I'll come back.
Right.
Yeah.
I call the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Just on